What's up, Profitable Stylist? Eddie Ohanian, Bernard Ori. We are talking about shedding, hair loss, all things that suck and drive us crazy. What's up, Bernard?
Hey, I was just showing like how a scalp can look really thin when the light's going through it, and then if
Oh,
you
look
put
at
your
that.
hand, it doesn't. So many tricks to go along with this. Yeah, I love this topic, shedding. I think it's only talked about on one side so often because people have problems, questions, concerns with just the one side. As a matter of fact, one that drives me crazy, and I did
So
not
often,
answer
sir.
on the one of the bigger forums the other day on Facebook. I saw this girl show a close up of a hairline and then a scribbled out face because they didn't want her.
Yeah, they
Nobody
don't
wants
want to
to.
show the person.
Yeah, right, right. But they said, look at these short hairs along the front. I've been doing this girl's hair for a few years, and it's always been short like that. Why is it like that just on the front hairline? The first thing I wanted to say, well, first of all, we don't definitely know so many things it could be. But the first thing I wanted to say is that I bet it's not just the front hairline. They just see it on the front hairline, but you can almost always part the hair and look, and it's throughout. And we're going to get into that in a minute and why that is and what's going on there. But I thought I'd let you intro a little bit more.
Yeah. So there's going to be the two main topics is going to be shedding versus loss. They get confused for each other all the time, but there's really a huge difference. And so here comes the medical terms that Bernard always loves to hear all the science stuff.
Hate it. I'm just a regular guy.
Right? We're talking about telogen effluvium, which is excessive shedding. We're talking about anagen effluvium, which is hair loss. So those are the two medical terms, okay? Now, shedding and excessive shedding are also two different things, but as soon as we see hair fall out, we freak out, right? So
Right.
if you were to guess, how many hairs does a person lose per day on average? Normal, not excessive.
So, I did a little test.
Okay.
Obviously, people lose hair, some more than others. And I was teaching, we both travel the country teaching classes. And this one year, I worked for a company where I was going to help them start this new hair replacement business. So I was doing 8 to 20 people in the class about every other weekend for about a year and a half. And I thought, I'm going to go on this mission. Whereas when I was doing extensions in the past, the mission was ask people if they knew what Remy hair was, and hardly anybody ever did. And then this mission was all about shedding. Did you freeze or are you sitting real still? Oh,
No,
wow,
there
I
was
thought
a
you
comment
froze.
coming through, so I was trying to read it.
Okay.
Um,
So I did what you're asking me right now. I said, how many hairs does the average person shed per day? What did you learn in school? Because I thought maybe my local school was a little different or off, and going across the country, most people guessed the school told them 50 to 100. And then one girl in Las Vegas said, no, new studies on the internet, it's more like 35 to 50 is the average. I was like, wow, that's a big difference. And
yeah.
I don't know. I didn't shed much hair forever. I mean, I had somebody recently on one of my YouTube videos. It was very nice. They were trying to console me and said, your hair looks fine, Bernard. But I said something about shedding. But I mean, I'm 52. And for many, many years, shower, bath, there would be no hair in the bathtub. But my wife, there was lots of hairs. And we know the difference because of the length, And all of a sudden, over the last year or two, there are quite a few of my hairs, at least 5 to 10. Every time I take a bath or a shower, I see them. And I mean, for 52, I know I have a lot of hair, a little bitty forehead. I know I have more than the average person. I'm not complaining. I'm not worried. I'm not freaking out. But I can see how people freak out because I'm actually thinking I might actually go thin or bald before I die. And I know so many people hate that. And I'm thinking, wow, I can literally see my scalp between my hairs now. Now, I know most people are saying, shut up, Bernard, you got a lot of hair. But
Such a drama queen.
I used to have so much hair on that hairline, you could not see any scalp through it. So even somebody with as much hair as me, I'm actually worried a little bit. I can't even imagine how traumatizing it could be for somebody who actually is much thinner than me. So I get it. I get the pain. So I don't know. That was just my passionate story about shedding. It happens to everybody, but there's averages because some people are losing a little more than others. And then there's health, where people are losing hair for health reasons.
Right.
And that's kind of the things we wanted to talk a little bit about, the difference. And go ahead, I can tell you chomping to say something.
No, I'm with you on that one. It's so the average is supposed to, the average has always been 50 to 100 strands. That's just been the normal industry.
A day.
Right. Can you imagine where throughout the day does all of this come from? But obviously, if the hair is shorter, if the hair is longer, obviously if the hair is longer and if it's darker, like I got black hair, one of my hairs fell out. If it's on the countertop, you see it.
Right. If you see it on a white counter.
Right.
That's why you wear a black shirt.
In a brush, you don't necessarily know, like you might know there is some hair in a brush, but if it's darker and your brush is darker, then you don't necessarily know the difference until you go to clean your brush. But how often do we clean our brushes? Right? On average. I'm talking about average person.
Single day.
Well, you're supposed to. God bless. You're supposed to.
I know nobody does. Right.
But then when somebody goes to pull the hair off their brush, all of a sudden they got a handful and you're like, whoa, what is this?
Right.
So that's the thing. Look, you lose weight. You're like, well, what are some of the things that can cause hair loss, right? And a lot of people don't realize you put on weight, you lose weight, your body goes through a change. That's a shock to the system. It freaks out. And all of a sudden, one of the results of that is hair loss. One of the interesting things that we don't realize is that any shock to our system doesn't materialize till approximately 4 to 6 months later. So if you're experiencing loss now, that doesn't necessarily mean it's an immediate result to something that happened. You got to think backwards, and a lot of people don't think about that. Especially you deal with hair replacement a lot. I imagine you run into this kind of stuff all the time. People tell you, I used to have thick hair, and all of a sudden now it's thin. Like overnight, now it's thin, and they don't realize it's been thinning over the past couple of visits.
Over time.
Yeah.
Something else I like to talk about also about thinning is like when you said, where does all the hair go? What's going on? These are all average numbers, but the average person I've always heard and read that on their head has 100,000 hairs. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not a math genius, but I'm thinking at 100 hairs a day, 100,000 hairs, then in the near future, I'm going to have 0 hairs if it's every single day. The part that nobody ever talks about is how many hairs we are growing back. So natural shedding, if you're losing 100 hairs a day and you're 20 years old, you're probably regrowing 100 hairs a day. And without going into great detail, I've become an expert in that. That whole situation because of trying to blend hair extensions and hair replacements into people's hair, because we're buying or they're buying this thing that goes on their head that has a certain length hair. You cut it and you ever hear that term like, oh, my haircut looks better after a few days or after a week. What's happening is all those hairs, and that's a bad haircut, of course, but all those hairs are boom, solid across. And then like my fingers, as they grow out all at different rates, they're different lengths. But you've also got some of those hairs falling out, some new ones growing back. So you've always got all these different lengths because most people are growing back about the same amount they're losing each day. Now, as we get older, in our 30s and 40s, we're probably losing 100 in a day, growing back 97, 98. So we're losing 3 or 4 hairs on average a day that we never get back. And we kind of touched on a bunch of different topics, but I want to blend a bunch of things together. We're naturally losing some hair, more or less, depending on who we are. We're gaining back less of those hairs the older we get. And then when we go through trauma, drama, even just drama, people stress out over anything, stupid things, real things. Your hair and your skin and your nails, I've always three of the things that, well, hair and nails mostly, the body doesn't really need as much to survive. So it's kind of the first thing it pulls back on. It's like, we don't really need that hair. Let's give the health to these other organs that are keeping this person alive. And that's one of the reasons we lose hair. But our identity is so wrapped up in our hair so often that it affects us even more emotionally. And then we lose more hair. So it's like a vicious cycle sometimes. And I do get that.
I'm going to segue off topic for one moment.
Go ahead.
Richard is asking a question about she hair extensions. You know, last week we said we was going to talk about she hair this week, and we talking about shedding instead. So we are off on our topics by a week. Richard, we will talk about she hair. Thank you for pointing that out. He's also asking, so he has a little bit of a situation that we're going to have to contact him directly about to talk about a client and strands. Also, he wants to know if it's worth offering strands because it seems like they take a long time to put in, and he doesn't want to lose clients. There's a lot of things to deep dive into that. The short answer is yes, absolutely, it's worth offering strands. It's an amazing thing to do. But you do need to contact us directly, or we will reach out to you directly after we get off this live.
Well, it's on the list. It's on the list. We are going to be talking about she. We've got a long list of topics, and we did say we'd talk about it. I'm sorry if we said we'd talk about that in the very next week, but it is on the list, and it is actually coming in. We did have it in the topic today because we're going to talk about, in general, hair replacement, hair extensions, and about strands and on-stage beaded toppers and the beaded strands.
The beaded strands.
Right. Woo! So many specific terms. So let's talk about it for just a second, since that came up, because that brings extensions into the game. And I kind of started to talk about that. And I was kind of finished with everything else as far as hair loss for all the different reasons, whether it's stress or age or just whatever. Most of the time you grow it back. The only one thing I've ever seen is chemotherapy, where a person loses most of their hair most of the time. Some people don't lose any hair in chemo, but most people lose all of their hair to most of it, and most people grow it all back. It's one of the very few things that is like an all and then get it all back. You lose it all, get it all back, and it's a great thing when it all comes back. It's a slow growing, slowly, and one of the little personal commitments I've made to that whole situation is when somebody comes in, talks to me about chemo, and they start losing some hair, I'm just going to throw this out there for the clients and the hairdressers. That hair starts to shed after about a week or two, and you brush or comb your hair, and it'll just start to pull out. And if you see a big number of hairs coming out like that, I say emotionally, it's better to shave your whole head, because most of the time, 80-90% of the hair comes out, and you're left with a little bit of hair, and you are left looking more sick. So then you start to feel more defeated and more sick. So by shaving your head, you are in control. You control the situation. It looks a lot healthier to have a completely bald head. It's a lot more comfortable. Wear a wig if you want to, or not, or just rock that bald head. So many people are. And then when it starts to grow back, it all grows back very evenly and a lot easier to work with. And it's not too long after. If you're not one of the very few unlucky ones that it doesn't all grow back or it just grows back thin. So I just want to throw that out there in this whole hair loss situation. And then we are going to go deep dive into she hair in a video all of its own. But just to lump that in with all the extensions, I was just kind of starting to cover that. Remember how some people say, hey, my hair looks better after a few days or a week because that hair is cut even and it starts to grow at a bunch of different rates. Some fall out, some are growing back. So to get extensions and hair replacement and other things to look good, you can't just cut it and blend it in with the hair today, because then the client's hair is growing today and tomorrow, and the extensions and the hair replacement is not. So we have to, as professionals, learn techniques, which over the years we get better and better at it, where we leave the ends of the hair at different lengths, whether we cut with a razor, texturizing shears, point cutting, and just break it up a little. But more than that, in a length like this, I have to do more than just break it up a little here. I got to imagine that this is a real head that might have been losing 100 hairs a day on average, but regrowing. So I need to have lengths that are here and here and here. So I've got to somehow put very few. I can't do it with layers, so I almost have to go in there with texturizing shear. The hair's in my mouth. I breathe.
Texturizing shears, slide cutting techniques, razor
Yeah.
cutting techniques, all the different things that you need to do to create that blending of layers to make it look as natural, to mimic it with somebody's natural hair, that their hair is growing
Right.
back in different lengths at different speeds at different times, because the hair goes through a cycle. It's a growing, a resting, and a shedding phase. That is just the
That's,
three
oh,
natural. That's the cycle of life.
what's those fancy terms for that?
What's that?
They have three fancy names for that.
They
I'm surprised
do.
you don't have them listed.
They do, and I know them, but now that you put me on the spot, I'm blanking out.
Oh, it's all right.
So I have to go to the
prefer not
Googles to
Yeah.
remember.
And I don't use those terms, but I know there are, and people like to pride themselves in knowing them. I thought for sure you'd know it, but you're right. That's one we didn't mention was the resting stage, because basically you don't. He's looking it up.
I could no because I know it. Look, and there it is. I knew it.
So basically, you're right. It's true. I think we should have mentioned that basically I'm going to describe them and then you can name them. One is the hair is what we see. It's growing. It falls out, but then it does rest or just doesn't grow or it's dormant, and that can literally happen, according to the doctors, up to 10 years. So some hairs start growing out of that same hole before this one even sheds, and then it sheds and there's no resting in between.
Mm-hmm.
But often two hairs are growing out of the same hole and then the shed. But often, like you said, is that hair just falls out and there's nothing there. And that's when things like hair regrowth products can sometimes help unclog those pores if it's not genetic, health related. And what are those three things called, those words?
So I had said it earlier. Anagen effluvium is hair loss, right? And anagen is basically your genetics. So you're either determined to have thin hair, thick hair, a lot of hair, a little bit of hair. You're gonna have hair till you're in your 50s and have a nice full head of hair. You start graying, like I started graying in my early 20s. Myself, I've been coloring my hair for over 20 years. So it's, anagen phase is your growth phase based off of your genetics, okay? The resting phase is your catagen phase. And an easy way to remember that is like catatonic. You're just sitting there not doing anything. I'm not making fun. That's actually a terrible analogy.
No,
and
it's
then,
good. Way to remember it.
Yeah, and then the telogen phase is just like we were talking about, telogen effluvium. It's excessive shedding, right? But in a normal shedding, that's just your telogen phase. You're just naturally shedding. And some of the other things that can affect that kind of stuff, I was talking about weight loss earlier, and then, it's the standard stuff, stress, medication. Look, women, females, when they have babies, childbirth.
Yes.
That's a huge wreaks havoc on your system up to a year, if not sometimes longer. So all of the different stuffs like that, external things could also affect, hair loss and shedding.
I'm glad you brought up the pregnancy thing, because I thought of it earlier, and then we had that question come in, kind of threw us a little curveball.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to bring up pregnancy too. That's a big one, even just menstrual cycle. But there's so many things that ladies go through that men don't, that affects hair in so many ways. And traditionally, not always, but traditionally women are growing and wearing their hair longer than most men. So it's even more noticeable. So many guys are wearing short hair and it's socially acceptable. So many of these bodybuilders and celebrities are just shaving their heads. Half of them are doing it because they're balding and they think I need to just control the situation.
Yeah,
and then so many of them look pretty good with a bald head, so they just do it anyway. And I have to admit, Sinead O'Connor looked pretty good with a bald head. I mean, I did like her and a few other celebrities. But most girls don't think they look good with a bald head, not to mention they're used to wearing longer, fuller, thicker hair traditionally. So when you go from that to no hair or thin hair, it's more traumatic to a woman. So they're going through many more things, like you said, and then when it changes, it's just such a big deal. And I enjoy helping people. I think that it's so acceptable these days to wear hair extensions, hair replacement, a wig, a hair piece, a clip-on, a topper, that it makes the whole, even for men, it just makes it so much more acceptable. I don't understand why. I think it's a fun time in history for me to go through when it was not okay to when it is okay. I love being in that change, because it was when I was first selling hair to people 25 and 30 years ago. I've been doing this right at 30 years. It was like a huge secret. Everything was done in private rooms, even hair extensions. And now it's kind of like even hair replacement is being done on some salon floors. They're shaving the head, putting hair on. And I like the attitude now about it, because it's like, you know what? It's just like the clothes we wear. I mean, why do we wear clothes? And why do some people care what clothes?
You like, want changing rooms out on the floor then? You don't want private changing rooms? What are you saying?
No, but I mean, truthfully, it's these social pressures that are put on us, you know?
You want to run around like Tarzan. I could picture you in the jungle.
It's so much more comfortable with no clothes. I mean, come on, let's get real. But at the same time, it's socially acceptable not only to wear clothes, but to wear certain clothes for certain occasions. And so one guy told me, he said, I don't care who knows that I'm wearing hair. It's like a suit. He said, I mean, I dress up for work every day. What's the difference? He said, women have been altering so many things on their bodies for so long, even if it was just makeup. Why can't I put hair on my head? I said, Fair enough. Can. I agree with you there. I mean, to me, it's no different than just putting clothes on. I mean, we're doing something I do it to cover the little overweight belly I have, you know? And so if clothes are going to make my body look a little bit better, I would definitely wear hair if I wasn't so lucky to have so much already. I'm just saying. Why not?
Fair enough. So then here is, then that's actually a good segue. So when that's all the hair loss stuff, when we get calls, you know, and especially sometimes I call you up just to kind of vent behind the scenes a little bit. When people talk about shedding in hair extensions, it's different than shedding on natural hair. So we've just gone over all the natural hair shedding stuff. Shedding on hair extensions is an external factor. There's an external stress that's happening, whether the person realizes it or doesn't realize it. They're doing something, and they're physically ripping the hair out of the bond attachment. I don't care if it's a weft, topper strand.
Not always. Oh, you're going straight to the. I agree.
I know you and I have a little bit different opinions on this one.
So I use this analogy. I like to try to break things up in categories, and I got this analogy. I mean, I've got this. This is not the best example, but this is a stool with what, 4 legs on it. What if it had 3? So I like to use an example of a 3-legged stool. Actually, the tripod that my phone is on right now. If any one of these 3 legs disappears or breaks, the stool's falling down. And those 3 legs, I find in the hair world, extensions, hair replacement, whatever, those 3 legs to me are the manufacturer who sells the hair, the hairdresser, and the client. And I feel like the problem could be in any one of those 3 categories. And so, yes, you know as well as I that we sell a high-end product. And so if there's a problem with the hair or the manufacturer, we usually get that same problem called 2 or 3 times in a day or in a week. This particular color is having this problem. And then we go, oh, goodness, grab all that hair off the wall. Let's take a look at it. What's going on? That particular color is having a problem this week. Must have been a bad batch. But you are jumping straight to the more common problem. And I get it. But I just wanted to
because it just doesn't happen. Like it is so infrequent that it's a bad batch, because there is no bad batch. It just doesn't. Well, at least with our brands, because they're
Right.
high end, and in the way that they're manufactured, in the way that the hair is purchased, the whole which we'll deep dive on that one on the she hair, when
Yeah,
we do that
definitely.
one. It's such a deep dive topic, and it's such a crazy process that the extensions go through. It just yes, okay, fine. In all fairness, one of the three legs could be the manufacturer. Minus
Let's finish
that
that one real quick. Let's finish that one real quick.
Okay.
I want to just mention this one thing while we're there, because I want to give the possibility of what's going on with the manufacturer.
That's fair.
Some of us, you and I included, have been so spoiled for so long because we've dealt with the highest end hair for so long.
Okay.
And on stage at hair shows, I have people come up to me all the time. I mean, back when we could do hair shows, but I would have people come to me so often and say, "You got to try our hair. I see you sell." Of course, they look at, they're like, "Oh, if Bernard does our hair and likes it and sells it, we'll make millions." So I would test a lot of people's hair, put some hair on some of my hairdressers for free back at home, and I'd get to experience that low end quality hair. But there was a number of years where all I did was use high end hair. I hear myself echo through yours a little bit. I wonder if that's happening in the channel also. I love your new microphone, by the way.
Thank
It's
you.
really
No,
cool
but your
looking.
volume is fine.
Okay, good. So it's a slight echo. So I just wanted to see if there was anything you could do. So
Yeah, get rid of your iPhone.
So I want a thumbs up from the iPhone users out there in the comments below, and
PC Master Race, baby.
and what would you want people to put if they use an Android? Thumbs up for iPhones, and you could just put like a smiley face or a skull for an Android. I don't know. Put that Android. Do they have an Android? Anyway, we've been so spoiled using good, high quality hair for so many years that what would happen, and I noticed it with some of the stylists in my own salon, is that first of all, human hair, it is not consistent no matter what. On our own heads, it's not consistent. But when we're buying hair from people around the world, we're buying this high-end hair. But it's still going to be perfect and not so perfect, because then you still got middle end, low end, trash, and all in this category. If you're getting here for a while and it dips a little and the color fades a little or it's a little drier, and you're like, oh, this isn't the same hair that I got last time. True, because it's human hair. So there is going to be some variance even at the high end. And I think some people, very few people out there, have not used very low end hair. And that's when you have to realize, like, hey, if you used a little bit of trash out there like I have just to kind of test other products for a while, even when my high end brand dips a little, I'm like, wow, this is still so much better than most of the stuff out there. So that's covering the manufacturer. The other two big problems we'll go into is sometimes it's the hairdresser. The hairdresser just doesn't do a good job, has a bad day, has an off day, doesn't put them in as well, doesn't secure the bond as well, heat it correctly, roll it, fold it, or squeeze that bead tight enough or put enough hair in the bead. And then sometimes, and I know we'll go into more detail here in a minute, and then sometimes it's the client just totally doesn't do anything you say or do anything right or take care of their hair correctly. I know you want to add to those two topics.
I'm very protective of stylists that we train, because we train them very well, and they care. They're among the most caring stylists I've ever met, and that's why I'm very protective of them. But then I also hate them simultaneously, because they're allergic to making money. Their hearts are so big. They care about their clients so much. They want to do such a great job, but they don't want to charge for what they're worth, and that's a whole nother.
Oh, I know.
That's going to be a whole nother argument there. But no. So okay, there is a thought out there that exists, and I've run into this before in classes, especially, and in refreshing classes and all that stuff, that if I don't put a lot of hair into the attachment, then it's going to be lighter on the head, or it's not going to be as stressful on the head. But that's actually wrong. You're actually putting stress, because there's not enough hair to support the weight of the bond attachment. Not that it's that heavy, but there's just not enough hair in there. And then there's the opposite thing, where it's like, if I take extra hair and shove it all in there, then that's going to hold on to it better too. But if you've got extra hair in there, you're pinching, right? and you're creating that pinch point. Now you're stressing out because now the hairs from the sides are coming in on an angle that can cause breakage, that can cause shedding, that can cause unnecessary stress. You're only really holding on to it from the center, and you're asking for a hot mess. So that's one of the common application problems that can happen from a stylist side of things. The cutting and blending side of things, sometimes, look, I'm very scissor happy. It's not a secret. So
I used to be.
Yeah, right. So if you cut the bond a little smaller, or if you clip the bead, not as tight, or if you even clip the bead too tight, when you're going in to layer it, if you're just having fun, because we can't be on stage right now, so we're using behind the chair as a stage platform, and you're just hacking away, and you got the blow dryer underneath, and hair just flying all over the place. Edward Scissorhands and stuff. It's you setting up your client to go home for failure.
Yeah, I agree. And I want to add a little bit to that. I like some of the things you said. So some of the very few things a lot of times we have to solve problems over the phone, and I can do the best I can with descriptive pictures, but descriptive words to kind of describe some pictures. But I always say, send me a short video of you putting a couple of bonds, beads, whatever, you squeezing a couple, you heating a couple, and I can help tweak your technique just from watching you in a video. And I can tell you ahead of time, before you even do that, since you hadn't sent the video yet, let me just tell you what's going on. You need enough hair to support the hair you're putting in. Mm-hmm. If you're putting in a bigger, chunkier piece of hair, you need a little more of the client's hair to support that weight. My favorite thing from hairdressers, this oxymoron thing, is when people call me or text me or message me or email me and say, Bernard, how much hair do you think I need? This lady has a lot of hair, so I'm not going to need much. It's like, some people think of it backwards, and it blows my mind. I don't even understand where that comes from. Or they say, my client has very little hair, so I'm going to need a lot.
So I'm going to need a lot because she has little hair, yeah.
Yeah, and it's actually just the opposite. To make it look good, you should be kind of matching what you have. If a client has a lot of hair, you need more hair. If they have a little skinny head and a little thin, fine amount of hair, you don't need much hair to do it. I always use these 3 categories. I like to break things down into categories, and I always say there's 3 things that determine how much hair a person needs. It's the length of hair compared to the length you're putting on them, the thickness, overall density and size of each hair and how many they have on the head. So, density versus thickness, and the size of the head. So you take those 3 things into category and into consideration when you categorize those 3 to figure it out. But I still think something you said in our last video or the one before kind of comes into play here. When people are seeing how much hair is needed on a head, and they go with a lot more hair, especially in the weft world. We're in a heavy weft trend right now, and people are wanting the most hair they can get on a weft, or they're stacking 4 and 5 and 6 wefts all on top, all in one row. And I'm like you. I think that's the lazy way out in most cases. It's building this thick, bulky thing on the head, and it's putting all the hair in one spot, and then they're depending on the haircut or the style to blend it. I mean, this is the reason we have hair on our head all the way throughout. You can't just put it all here and expect it to blend everywhere. You need to spread that stuff out. And I wish I could use a curse word there, because I really want to emphasize spread that S stuff out, And so I would think finer, thinner, littler pieces, more of them spread out is going to look better. But what I usually cover in that little tweak in the technique thing is 2 or 3 little things. 1, enough hair to support the weight. That's why I don't love tape ends so much, because usually people put too thin of a row of hair to support these 2 mountains of hair on each other. And then before you seal, whatever you're doing, keratin bond, squeezing a bead, tie in, whatever, that most people's heads here, the hair wants to hang at natural fall like this, but the hairdresser's pulling the hair out like this, taking a grouping of it, and then sealing it here. And then when it falls, it's looping over because it's not at natural fall. So you've got to have that hair at natural fall like this, and then do all your enough hair at natural fall, and then seal it in however you're doing it. Those are the technical things that most people are getting wrong, and then causing hair loss, shedding, damage, or wearing them too long. You want to go into that?
No, I mean, that covers it, and then it comes to the client. And
Yep.
the client, I mean, look, if you are the client watching this, okay, so if you're the stylist watching this, you understand my pain. If you are the client watching this, you're going to have to try to understand my pain, because I'm not mad. It's not like, oh, shame on you, how dare you, right?
You sound mad.
I sound mad because I also care. And the emotions run high because I want people to enjoy the service. It's the worst feeling to spend all that time and effort, forget about the money, but you spend all that time and effort to create a look, to feel good, to be happy, to enjoy, and now you're through some hardship because of negligence or because of just misinformation, because of whatever the thing happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
It kills me when you spend all this time, you put in all the extensions, and then the person comes back a week later or 2 weeks later or whatever extended amount of time, and they say, I'm not happy with my hair. Look at my hair. It's not doing what it's supposed to do. And so you ask the simple question, well, what have you been doing to your hair? Oh, I don't do anything. I don't touch it. See,
Nothing.
I don't do anything. I don't do anything. And look. It's all tangled. It's all balled up. It's all messed up. It's all falling out. It's a mess.
Or I just didn't like them, so I removed them myself, and look what they did to my hair. Look, damaged my hair. I'm going to remove them myself. So, I mean, I know it couldn't have been me. It had to be the extensions. I removed them myself.
Yeah, you got a bad batch.
Why? I don't know why my hair is damaged. I mean, we've had that so many times. I'm thinking, I ask them, so do you have a license? And one lady said, I have a driver's license. And I'm like, no, I mean, do you? Were you trained on how to put these in or take them out? And you know what? A few of them have got me on one lately. She goes, yeah, I went to beauty school 30 years ago. I mean, she's working in an office.
You're killing me over here.
She didn't get her license, but she went to beauty school 30 years ago. So of course she's qualified.
Or they have a friend who went to school, or they have a niece who went to school, but they haven't seen their niece in 6 years.
Right. So I mean, I think people are
now we're just making fun. Now we're just making. That's not nice. That's not nice. Shame on you, Bernard.
A lot of fun. We should end this video before it goes bad.
No, but look, that's some of the things is you got to understand. You have to. Okay. Minus extensions for a moment, just for your own natural hair, there is a regimen that we all have to do. We have to shampoo, not every day, but we have to shampoo our hair a couple of times a week. We have to condition our hair. We have to put leave-in products or some kind of detangling. I mean, we have to detangle and smooth out and brush out our hair. We have to use heat sources, whether it's a blow dryer, flat iron, curling iron, rollers, whatever, to blow dry, style our hair in an effort to keep our cuticle sealed and closed, so that we can create the look that we want, so we can present ourselves the way that we want to look like, and go out into the world, right? When you're adding extensions, you are bulking up. You are doubling. Sometimes you're adding 2 to 3 times the amount of hair that you already have on your hair, on your natural hair head. So the hair that you have now is going to require double effort, or 1.5 times or 2 times or 3 times the effort, depending on what you do.
So schedule the time.
Right. You got to schedule that amount of time. You got to be mentally prepared for that. Your lifestyle has to be able to support that maintenance, that additional maintenance that you need to do. And some of the things that you normally do in your life, whether you're running, swimming, working out, I don't know, going WrestleMania at home, with the kids, or your husband at night, or whatever you're doing, you just have to be a little mindful that the pulling has to not be so rough.
And swimming, chlorine, hot tubs, You've got to treat it like the old days of color. Like, you've got to protect the color treatedness of the hair. You've got to rinse the chlorine out, or wet your hair ahead of time, or put sunscreen in. I actually have an appointment I have to go deal with, so we have to end this unless you want to finish it on your own.
No, that was the last thing I wanted to hit up, because we're running a little long over here. So that's all the different stuff, and all these things will cause shedding to some certain degree. Always the answer is hit up your stylist straight away, and talk to them about it. Stylist, hit us up straight away and talk to us about it, and we'll go from there. Thank you guys very much. As always, hit us up in the comments, let us know, and we'll go from there. Bernard, thank you for your time today too. Yeah, clean your brushes, man.
What? I know. Look at that.